Hello everybody and welcome to the Board Gamer Girl channel. I'm Natalie and today we're gonna set sail with Ahoy. So today we're gonna take a look at a game by Leader Games called Ahoy. Ahoy is a game for 2 to 4 players that's an abstract strategy game. It is designed by Greg Loring Albright and Kyle Farron. It plays in about 45 to 75 minutes, and I'm gonna go over a little overview for you guys. So this isn't necessarily a how to play video, but it will be a little bit of an overview so that you understand a bit of the mechanics and what's going on in the game. So in the game, you are playing as naval or pirate units venturing onto this undiscovered sea. So you have 4 different factions in the game, and 2 of them are the same, playing a pickup and delivery style game called the Smugglers. So the Smugglers have the same boards and play the same way, but are only introduced in a 3 to 4 player game. Otherwise, in a 2-player game, you'll be playing an area control game with 2 different factions. So one faction is the Bluefin Squadron and the other faction is the Mullosk Union. You'll be utilizing different abilities and asymmetrical powers on each of the boards, along with collecting crew members and special effects as you play through the game in order to try to be the first one to hit 30 fame points. As soon as you reach 30 fame points, then you'll calculate the rest of the end game scoring for the Smugglers, and you'll see whoever has the most fame points wins. So let's get more into a bit of the setup so that you understand how that works out for each of the factions. So obviously when you start off, each player will pick one of the faction mats. In a 2-player game, you can only pick between the Bluefin Squadron and the Mullosk Union. In a 3-player game, one of the players can play as the Smugglers. And in a 4-player game, then you'll have all 4 factions on the table. Each faction will collect all of their tokens from the box, as different factions have different units or different materials that they'll be using throughout the game. The Bluefin Squadron, though, will take the first player marker for the first round and will have 5 dice versus 4 dice for every other faction. So every player will then roll their dice in order to have those prepped and ready for when you start your first round. The next step is that you take 2 tiles from the top of the tile deck and create the beginning of the sea map. So when you're creating the sea map, your first 2 tiles will be adjacent to each other, but the 2 islands will have to be as far away from each other as possible. So then each unit will have to place their units onto the board. The Bluefin Squadron and the Mullosk Union will have to place their ships on islands, and the other 2 units will take a place somewhere else on the 2 region tiles that are out. So after that, you'll be creating the market area. So the market area is created from the market deck, and you'll be placing 3 face-up market cards underneath the fame track board. So these market cards consist of 6 different suits, and these suits match different islands that will appear during the game as you flip and discover more of the central map. I'll explain a little bit more about the market cards a little bit later. So then each player can take $1 from the supply and place the rest of the tokens near the game board so that it's within everyone's reach. After that, you'll start taking turns clockwise, starting with the Bluefin Squadron. So each turn consists of spending 2 of your action dice on either your player board or your crew cards, or for the Mullosk Union if you use cards on their plan cards, for instance. Once you've completed your 2 action steps utilizing your 2 dice, it's on to the next player, and you'll go clockwise until the end of the round, where the Bluefin Squadron will place their last die. Once everyone's spent their dice for the round, you'll double check to see if anyone's hit 30 fame points. If not, then you'll continue into the next round. If you have, then you'll do final scoring and see who's come out the victor. So while this is an asymmetrical game, there are 4 action spots on every player's board that are similar, and we'll go over those actions right now. First is the sail action. Here you'll utilize one of your dice and place them in the sail spot on your player mat. and you'll move one of your units 1 to 2 spaces on the map. Some exceptions to this: you can't go through a sandbank, and if you go off of the board, you will discover a new land tile and have to play it within the restrictions of playing a land tile. Then there is the Tailwind Action. So the Tailwind Action, you'll be placing a die onto your player mat with a matching pip value that matches a space that's on the board. So in this instance, let's say we have a 6 value die. You would place it on your Tailwind Action and then find your flagship and place it onto an area that has a matching 6 value die spot. When you move using the Tailwind Action, you can actually avoid the sandbanks and can go through or cross them. Another action that you can take on your turn is the Repair Action. So everyone has access to the Repair Action on their boards, but the Bluefin Squadron demands that you place a 2 value die onto that spot in order to utilize it. Otherwise, all other factions say that you need to use an even numbered die to use the action. When you use the Repair Action, you'll be able to get rid of up to 2 damage tokens from your play area. This action is also one of the spots that cannot be attacked or damaged during the game. The last action that everyone has access to is the Cannons Action. So the Cannons Action is basically the same on everyone's playmat except for the Bluefin Squadron. On the Bluefin Squadron mat, you have to specifically place a 5 or 6 value die onto that spot in order to have loaded cannons. When you place a die into your cannon spot, then your cannons are loaded. This is what you'll be utilizing in order to battle. So the Cannons Action spot is not utilized the turn that you place a die into that area, but instead utilized when you're moving your flagship. So let's say that I move a ship into another area where there is an enemy unit. If you or that enemy unit have loaded cannons, then you start to perform a battle. If you are the player that moves into an area with an enemy unit, then you are considered the attacker. If there is more than one enemy unit in that area, then you must pick the defender to play first. If you are the attacker in the battle, then you'll be doing your cannons first. You'll be moving the pip value of your die down in order to use those pip values as a power before rolling battle dice. Then the defender will be able to see what the attacker has done and can utilize their cannons in the same way, if of course they have a die in the cannons area. Then both players will take one of these battle dice and they will each roll them. Depending on the pip value of the battle dice, plus the pip value of the cannons they subtracted from their action spot on their board, they will have a total, and the total that has the most value will be declared the winner. So each unit in the game has an asymmetrical victory power. So for the Bluefin Squadron and the Mullosk Union, on their player board, they have different options of what they can do when they win a battle. For the Smugglers, they will go through a different set of events that will give them victory points and rewards from winning a battle. So the last action that is available to all factions, but isn't necessarily on your player board, is the Crew Action. So this happens whenever any flagship visits an island. When you're at an island, you can look at the market row of 3 cards and see if any of the suits match the island that you are currently on. So if there is one or more matching crew members on the island that you are currently on, you can pay for that crew card and bring it into your player board area. You'll either pay for this with either coins or a dice action spot. If you use a dice action spot, then one of your 2 actions for that turn will have to be used by placing a die onto your crew. These crew members can give you ongoing abilities that can be helpful during the game. So now I'll just touch a bit upon the asymmetrical aspects of each faction. First, we'll go over the Bluefin Squadron and the Mullosk Union, who are playing more of an area control game. So let's start with the Bluefin Squadron. So the Bluefin Squadron has a few different units. They have patrol units, stronghold units, and their flagship. So their patrol units can be placed on their turn and helps them mitigate any damage that can come to them in a battle. By spending a patrol unit, then they will not have to place a damage token on their board. You can also use patrol units to have 2 placed in a region in order to take those back to your area and place one of your strongholds. So your patrol units are worth 1 control at the end of the round when you're calculating area control majority. Your strongholds will count as 2 and your flagship counts as 2. So they'll be counting up their area majority control points against the Mullosk Union. So the Mullosk Union will have their flagship, which is 2 points, and their comrade tokens. So these tokens are each worth 1 control point each. The difference with the comrade tokens is that if any unit travels in or through them, it does not start a battle even if that player has loaded cannons. So the Mullosk Union also has a special plan deck, which they'll be playing with. So in this plan deck has a few cards that'll help them throughout the game do actions. They can also negotiate or bluff different cards that they have in their hand before playing them in order to help their game along. 2 significant cards that are in this deck are called the Cutter and the Gunship, which are 2 ships available to the Mullosk Union that can only be played when they've got these 2 actions. In order to play these cards, you will have to spend 2 different comrade tokens on the board, bring them back to your play area in order to put one of these ships on the board. So the Cutter will actually add more control to the comrade units in its region. So for instance, if there is an area where the Cutter is and there are comrades in that area, then each comrade, instead of being only 1 power, is now 2 power in the region. So the Gunship is another ship by the Mullosk Union, where if it's placed in the same way that the Cutter is, where you spend 2 comrades in order to place it on the board, it plays as if it always has loaded cannons. So it will always battle. But in a battle, before you even do any loaded cannons or rolling dice, this ship already has a +3 value to its die roll. So the important thing is that once these ships are damaged, you cannot repair them either. So that is basically the asymmetrical overview points of both of these factions. There are obviously a few different areas, like their player boards, that have different asymmetrical actions that are only available to them. For the purposes of this overview, we've just basically gone over the units in order to get to area control scoring. So area control scoring happens at the end of the round and is between both of these units. So in a single region tile, they'll calculate how much control they have in that area. Based on whoever has the most points in that area, they'll be rewarded points based on the central die that is called the wealth die. The wealth die, when first discovering a new tile, will be set to 1. And then it's the smugglers that actually increase the wealth of that region over time by a pip every time they deliver a cargo to that area. So lastly, we'll go over a bit of the smugglers. So these smugglers are the exact same, but they do have different colors to signify the difference. So one is red and one is gray. So these smugglers are trying to pick up cargo from one island and deliver it to another island. So these smugglers, when they are on an island, can look at the market aisle and see if there are any crew members there that match the same suit as the island. If there is, they can pick up that card for free and place it in their cargo slot underneath their board. Each of the smugglers can only hold up to 2 cargo at any one time. If they pick up a third, then they have to discard one of the cargo that they currently hold. What they'll then be doing is working their way across the board to find an island that matches the cargo suit on their cards. Once they reach an island with their ship that matches the suit of the cargo that they are holding, they can then deliver that cargo and go through their actions of how they will gain points. So when the smugglers deliver this cargo to that region, they will first go and collect 2 fame points on the track board. They will then utilize the wealth die in the center of that region and move it 1 pip value up. Hence, this will give the area control units more points to acquire the further the game goes and the more delivering of cargo happens during the game. Then the smugglers will end up getting a reward from their area reward part of their boards. They'll utilize using the 2 different markers to signify what reward they're taking The last action that the smugglers will have to do during a deliver cargo action is pledge allegiance to one of the factions. This is done by placing the cargo card face down in their player area and by taking one of their 2 pledge markers and putting it on top of that card. This is done in secret and will only be revealed at the end of the game. At the end of the game, once a player has hit 30 fame points and the round has been calculated, then the smugglers will calculate how many correct guesses they have from their pledged cargo. What this means is that when a smuggler pledges one of their cargo, they think that by the end of the game, either the Mullosk Union or the Bluefin Squadron will have the most control in regions with that suit. Based on the results, they will get 1 point for every correct guess that they pledged. So with that and a general overview of the game, let's get a bit into my experience playing Ahoy. So Ahoy took myself and the players around the table a little hot minute to get our heads around, and after at least a round or 2, we started to get the flow of things. I feel like that is just a similar thing when you're first starting out in any asymmetrical game, and it is like there's a few different things, but if you're familiar with later games, you know that asymmetry is kind of their jam. So for us, we were thinking in the beginning of the game that the smugglers were kind of going to run away with it as they were getting points pretty quickly, and the dice in the region areas that would score us our area control points would take a while for us to even catch up. And the delivering cargo action made some regions more valuable than others for area control scoring. By the end of the game, we saw that actually the area control factions came out closer to on top than the smuggler actions. But I will say for the first game that we played of Ahoy, we messed up a rule with the smugglers and they probably would have gotten more points over the game. Anyways, when we were playing, we appreciated that also you could spend $1 in order to mitigate your dice. So spending $1 will get you a pip value change by 1 for every $1 that you spend, but you can't wrap around by doing like a 6 to a 1 or a 1 to a 6 or something like that. I will say that having only 2 factions where you do area control and then 2 factions that do pick up and deliver, that it is probably strongest at the 4-player playing count versus the 2-player one. I will say that I've only played this game at 4 players. I didn't quite like how the wealth die was changed in only a 2-player game, but that's basically just from reading the rule book, and I have yet to see it play out and see how that would actually actualize during a game. So I played the area control factions only as well, but I would be very curious to play the smugglers at one point. They seem a bit more streamlined with what they're doing, and the area control factions are a bit more intermediate compared to the smugglers, where I feel like if you've got a new gamer to the table, it'll be an easier way to get into the game. But I did like the game, and I actually found myself thinking a lot more about it after the first play, that I wanted to get it back to the table. So there isn't a solo mode out of the box for Ahoy, but there is a fan-made solo variant that's on BGG right now that I'll remember to link in the description below after the video. I'll also say, for the price point of this game and everything that you get in the box, this is a steal, like easily, hands down. The quality of components, the double layer boards that they have for each of the factions is great, and the cards, the tiles, and they even have these little player aids for each individual person, which actually I didn't go over this point, but there are areas on the board that'll have different things go off depending on the type of space that you're at. So if there's fog, you won't battle there. If it's like wreckage, you'll get damaged. If there's an anchor, you can repair for free there. and other places you can like get $1 or whatever. I think this is a great game if you already like leader games or if you're interested in asymmetry. I'd actually say if you're interested in asymmetry and you haven't tried their leader games or are just interested in getting into that mechanic, that this is almost like an intro to asymmetry. So I'd play Ahoy as almost an introduction before jumping into Root. It's like Root Light, but it's not the same asymmetry, but it gets you into that feel of how those things work. And while, again, I did have a little bit of a mind melt at the beginning of getting into the game, it really came together after a round or two. And lastly, the exciting thing about Ahoy is that Leader Games is coming out with a new expansion called New Horizons, and it adds new factions to the game already. I think there's about 4 new factions that are coming out. I think it's 2 like area control ones and then 2 that might not be pick up and deliver, but 2 that play outside of area control to play the game. And I think that's really neat. It's still gonna be a 2 to 4 player count. There won't be a solo mode still, but to give more variety than just these factions, I think will give a lot more variability to the game. And that has been my coverage on Ahoy. This has been a delightful time spent with you guys on this lovely evening. It's evening for me. It'll be whatever time it is for you when you're watching this video. But anyways, I digress and hope you have a fantastic time with whatever you're doing. And I'll see you next time on the Flippity Flip. As soon as you hit 30 fame points, then you calculate. The game is a 2 to 4 player abstract. No, it's not. That are out. Like I am. I've forgotten what I'm saying right now. What is this? Okay. So your dice in these games, okay. The Hunger Game, the Hunger. What is that from? There's a funny video. Oh, the Grace Helbig Hunger Games video. That was funny. Has nothing to do with this, of course. Anyway, this little fish looks like that little Pokemon, the little 4 action spots. I didn't put any freaking patrols out. Flagship, strong, nope. In what? Why? This video just gave me a warning that I do not have enough time to finish this video.